All right, let's get started, everybody. You had the minutes sent out to you by Mike. Are there any changes, corrections, or additions to the? Good morning, Nick.
Morning.
Morning.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We had a meeting yesterday in Glastonbury with the architects. Dr. Adley was there as well. And I'll let Diane cover that. What went on yesterday?
Yeah, so we met in SLAM's offices. We had a second schematic design working group meeting, and SLAM, Amy Samuelson, Dean, I don't remember his last name, and Kemp Morehart were there.
Ober. Dean Ober. Dean Ober.
Yep, as well as Dave Cravenzola from O&G. So the SLAM presented to us their developments on the plan, and I think for the most part they're really trying to kind of put the pieces together, the major programmatic pieces, determine some more detailed relationships among the parts, and it's really coming along. They also so there was a lot of back and forth. I think we made some good decisions. I think things are moving along nicely. As with the last meeting, we will post both the slides and the minutes for the meeting on the new Oxbridge SLAM website, which is available to all the committee members. And it would be great if everybody could take a look at them. And thank you to those who have done that and reported back on their thoughts.
Has anybody failed to sign up to the website, get your password?
Me?
Just talk to me afterwards. We'll get you squared away. Because they're putting all that information on their website. You just go in and pull it up.
Yeah, we're using it as a way to communicate and share the slides and minutes from the meetings. Yes, and then other than that, we discussed exterior imagery, interior imagery. Things are moving along really nicely. I think we made some good decisions. We're going to meet again in 3 weeks.
That'll be down here probably.
That will be down here.
That'll be
Yes.
down here after one of our meetings.
Yes.
Okay. Did you find that helpful yesterday? You were on the.
I did. I was there for like the first half of it.
Yeah. But it was hard to do with Skype.
Yeah, no, and I think just being guided on what page they were on was straightforward. But what were some of the decisions that were actually made? Like I remember one key one was basketball gym in front versus the back of that wing. Was that a call that was made?
Yeah, so I think
That was
there were
made.
2 areas that they zoomed in on. One was the what they're calling sort of more public wing. I forgot what the name they had for it. Which
Common
is,
space or
Yeah.
whatever.
where the gym is, the cafeteria, some of the big of the OTP room, and it was looking at relationships. What they've done is they've put some of the administration closer to the front door, to the right of the front door, for a combination of reasons, to scale down the entrance when you come to the corner of the gym is not the first thing that you see. And I think that we all agreed that breaking that administration into 3 pieces seems to work pretty well with the nurse in one area, the general administration together, and the continued the ELP administration together, and then
One of their goals was to create more of a visual into the
Correct.
courtyard.
Yep.
Whereas if you remember, everything was across here from an admin standpoint.
Right.
So they felt that was better in terms of kind
Opening
of
up
the heart
this
of the
entryway.
school.
So you can
having
see into the
visual
courtyard, and then to be clear, you go to, one way you go to the ELP wing, the other way you go to the education wing, and the third way you go to what is called the common space, the gym, the cafeteria, and all of that. And the area that they're talking about, since this is a taller building where the gym is, this was used to break up that sudden rise in height. So the first floor building here with a bit of a roof.
And functionally, too, the administration is closer to the front door, and that will operate a little bit better. There was another alternative where they looked at flipping the 2 around and putting all the smaller scale these spaces on the front, but I think it was agreed that this, being able to kind of see into this space, kind of the linear nature and the linear nature of that corridor and the way that worked was working well, and also keeping the cafeteria and the patio toward the back of the site and the service toward the front of the site was also beneficial with this plan. So I think and then I think the other big bonus was the way that this circulation around the around the stair was very open to the exterior and was creating a really nice space. So I think that was another positive to this part.
My
of the scheme.
question I wanted to ask about, they have this service area, which is off the cafeteria, but that has to service both trash, service, and everything else, right?
That's right.
So that's got
Delivery and trash going out.
Because they talked
Dumpsters
about
will be there.
reversing and putting the cafeteria, the kitchen in the back, and then they said, well, it's only gonna be delivery once or twice a month, but I said, no, you got trash removal, you got everything else going on there.
That's where the service people come in and work in the building.
Yeah,
My guys, that's where they would park.
Yeah.
Luke and I thought that if it was done that way, you kind of isolate the patio,
yes,
and you also make it so when the kids go outside,
they're not going over
they
that,
have
To
to
pass
cross
over
a
that.
service road to get to the playground.
which would make no
You
sense.
don't want to do.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So that, and also, we said that having the gym on the north side of the building, you could get higher light in that would be not glare light, it would always be soft light.
That's right.
So that it was a better design to put it over here on the north side. So that was one conclusion.
I
And
think
then
this
this-
moving the admin stuff here too, they said softens the height of that building
Right.
depending on the type of roof they come up with here.
Correct.
It's kind of a shame that your, service is right kind of in the front.
But it'll be
It's
screened,
very
it'll be
nice, yeah.
screened, it's over
I
on
think
the
it'll be
side.
screened,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think it provides space more toward the back of the property where the students can, go out to the playground from lunch in a way that they don't have to cross over the service. So
yeah.
this was the one area of a lot of conversation, and then SLAM had looked at there's no image in here, but they had looked at the classrooms. I think more for just exploration and making sure that they're going in the right direction. They had an in-house charrette of sorts, a peer review, and they've gotten some feedback, and we're trying to just explore all the options. And they're also reacting to some comments by Dave Cravenzola about the exterior envelope. The pod design creates an exterior envelope, which has a lot of kind of ins and outs. So they explored some schemes where the classrooms were all lined up on the corridor rather than in collected pods of sorts, and neighborhoods, I guess, is what they're talking about. And I think the reaction, I think the resulting plan was a lot less successful, and the group agreed that putting the classrooms into keeping the classrooms in neighborhoods is important for the academics, and important for what the school would like to have, the Board of Ed would like to have in terms of collective teaching layout. So
We'll look for selective words that define that exactly.
So, and then they explored looking at the courtyard as an open space versus the closed space that we've seen. And I think it was agreed that for a number of reasons, keeping the having circulation, having the building circulate around the courtyard and having that courtyard space be closed was beneficial. Partly also for servicing. Dave Cravenzola talked about having a courtyard layout rather than two wings would be beneficial to the mechanical and servicing the building, as well as it just made a lot of sense to create this courtyard that's been a strong part of the design so far.
Any other questions? Yeah, so we made those two decisions, which was that this would be the way the entrance would be laid out, and then also about keeping the pods and the closed courtyard.
Right.
Okay? Rather than going to a linear, which would be a less expensive facade on the school side.
Yeah, so as far as the other plan, I think it's reflected in
I don't think they showed
other
it.
drawings here.
No, I don't think they showed it.
Well, I guess you can see, maintaining a scheme where there's a closed courtyard and then 3 academic pods that go on the ground, on the main level and down on a second level. The expandability options too were greater with this pod
Yeah, Rusty,
layout.
this has the expandability out here off this wing.
Yeah, the only problem that I have with that, and I discussed it with Diane a little bit, if you need the expansion, you're going to add it on to 2 of the classes, class cities.
Pods.
Pods.
Right.
So what happens if your need is here or here?
I think you have to switch the class pods
You're,
around.
you'd be adding 6 classrooms into 1 pod, is what I'm saying, and you don't have the ability to do this and this, so that you may end up having, let's say, I don't remember what grade this is,
First.
or this, whatever, doesn't
Well, it
matter.
doesn't matter.
So you may have one person on the, 1 classroom here actually over there.
I
That's
hear
not
you.
uncommon at all for there to be flexibility year to year between the classrooms. That's something that we
No,
do every year.
that's
based
what I'm
on-
saying is, but the problem is you're now potentially taking a 4th grader and having them in the 3rd grade
Pod.
neighborhood.
I hear you. Well, we'll have to work on it some more.
Yeah.
Any more questions on this? It's a work in progress, obviously. There was a food service meeting. Ladies?
Yeah, I'll start. So we met this week with the Mike Brock from McFarland, Kistler and Associates, who is the food service consultant for working with SLAM. Amy Samuelson was from SLAM was there as well as Luke Forshaw and I've forgotten the assistant principals, Christina, Mike Lynch, Katie, myself. And so Mike came early to the meeting. He spent some time at Oxbridge and observed the existing cafeteria and operations, spoke with food service. Oh, and of course Deborah Bozzi was there as well, the head of the food service here in Darien. And so it was a productive conversation. I think it was mostly kind of a meet and greet and introductions and starting to share ideas about what's happening with kitchens right now. And I think the next meeting will be after schematics when Mike has an actual space to work with right now. Right now he's given a box, and I think he'll come back and say, you know, and a big feature of the conversation was discussing 3 waves of seating versus 6 waves of seating, which seems to be a goal that we're working towards, and making sure that we have the space to have 2 lines of service for the students in order to make that happen. Otherwise, he's going to wait for more careful delineation of a space from SLAM as schematic design progresses, and then he'll work more carefully on a few options for layouts, and we'll meet again at the end of schematic design.
Is there any more? Okay.
The only thing I would add to that was just that it did come up that Darien as a town does seem to hold itself to higher standards from the health department than even the state does. So I think that's an added piece that we'll need to work with to make sure that we understand what the Darien Health Department codes are and how that might impact the kitchen that we build.
And there's discussion, the ideas of sustainability in the kitchen were a part of the discussion, and I think that's something we're going to have to work on as the committee to determine, to determine what direction we want to go in with regard to trying to decrease the amount of plastics that are thrown out in the kitchen, and sort of figuring out where we're going to be going with that. We'll have meetings with the health department and kind of determine as a committee to where the direction is. We did agree that we wanted to make sure the kitchen was flexible in design, so there were options in the future for what might be coming down the road in terms of future sustainable design strategies in the kitchen. So we're going to have a conversation about that.
Okay. Rusty? And Nick?
You
You guys have been busy.
Yeah.
Our $500,000 bid, I told that to the state. You all know that we had commissioning agent bids range from $88,000 up to $512,000. I sort of laid it out, well, the low bid was this, and then the winner was 500, and Michelle kind of looked on the table at me. I said, it's a government contract.
Jeez.
Go ahead.
Troublemaker.
Well,
We narrowed it down to 2 people. Nick and I interviewed both of them. They both had superlative things said about them. We couldn't even make a decision that day that we had said because they were so close, very honestly. So we came back to it and chose Sustainable Engineering Solutions, a little more hands-on, smaller firm, but very, very good in Connecticut and knows Connecticut and all that. They are already working for us. We have to get the owner's project done quickly, done fairly quickly. I think
what's it called again?
It's the owner's project requirements. So it's what we're looking for in terms of the building is what it is. So
From an energy point of view, or?
it's energy sustainability and all that. So what they're doing is they're putting together their team. We've got to get them, the SLAM people and the engineer, I think, and then the 2 of us, or you, or whomever wants to go ahead. Then they're going to hand out questionnaires to us and to the architect and kind of try to pull it all together into a report, basically.
When's this due, Nick?
It's 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay.
We're supposed to have it done.
Okay.
This is really at the behest of the state more than anybody else. So.
This all leads up as part of the high-performance building
Correct.
standard? Okay,
Yeah.
great. So they're on board?
Well, we haven't signed it yet. We got their letter agreement. Both of us have reviewed it. It's pretty standard. There's not much there. We're just waiting for the blessing from the town attorney.
Okay.
And we'll get that to him hopefully this week.
All right,
And but he's not waiting, so.
good. Okay, then we had our meeting yesterday with the state. As usual, it was a wonderful meeting. At that meeting, we had Duke, myself, Diane from the committee, we had Dr. Adley, we had Amy Samuelson and Kemp Moore from SLAM, and we had Dave Cravenzola from O&G. The usual suspects were there, Michelle Dixon, and then, is it Kermit Thompson?
Correct.
Kermit Thompson and Barbara Fabiani, the architects. Most of the grilling was to Dr. Adley, so maybe he'd like to speak.
Or as he was referred to as superintendent.
I thought that the project was extremely well received. I think that you noted at the end that they said there was no fluff in this, but they did give us they went through the project as you would hope they would, and they might, talking everything from the pods to the ELP program, DLC program, they were trying to get an understanding of what those programs really were. I think they were kind of impressed about how it was being consolidated from the other schools, and the kids with the needs were being provided for. They have some logistical stuff for me to report out on. That includes the security review that was already done to this point. Not the review, not the safety of the committee, but the submission to DMS of the plan. A copy of the resolution. We have to deal with some swing space. So what sort of space do we need for portable? So that came up as a wee bit of, they need a more definition of that, a clear definition. And we'll be meeting next week with Luke, members of the committee at SLAM also to sort of like review that, bring that to a wee bit more specificity. So that's probably the most urgent thing that needs to be done. And some narratives she's looking for me about some of the programming, all which is reasonable and can be done. And knowing how these people operate, I thought that was a very positive meeting from the State Department. And,
I accept your interpretation.
so that speaks very well of the committee of how much you've done and the guidance from SLAM and so on and so forth. So I think we're in a very good place The main thing, I think, is really the swing space, getting the definition of that, the time frame, and trying to explain that.
They, my feeling was that Michelle Dixon tried very hard to find things that were explaining why we had more space than normal and why our costs were higher. I mean, she was looking for the ELP expansion space, and she looked at the DLC. You know, I thought she was being helpful rather than trying to cut us off, which is probably quite unusual up there. So that was a good sign. Yeah, that meeting, by the way, the swing space is really like where the line will cut off when we're of the existing building, with a portable classroom at a cost of $4,000 a month. We're talking about $100,000 roughly for a portable classroom for 2 years. So it's not an inexpensive problem. And I think the idea is trying to figure out affirmatively what we can do. And even though a line may change a little bit one way or another, we have to have the certainty of what we're going to try and do for the swing space.
They did say, I think their biggest concern about the swing space too, and Dave from ONG had said it, there is a real shortage and difficulty of finding portable classrooms, aside from the cost. So
Yeah.
he said that whatever project they're working on now, he said it was quite a challenge to try and find the portables to use. So
Thus-
to the point of, Michelle had said, kind of in the same sentence, which was interesting, the square footage we're at right now is problematic, but I don't see any fluff in here.
Yeah.
So,
But she said it was too expensive. I said, well,
Yeah.
but I said she didn't even believe until I convinced her that we had an appropriation for $63 million. She thought maybe that was the town clerk or that was the building committee. I said, no. But I said, we followed your advice, which was, and it was Kermit's advice, always ask for more, because you can never come back and get more. Don't ask.
Get less.
We can always come back and bring it down. And so I think that sort of challenged the push about how much the thing was going to cost per square foot basis. I mean, we don't think we're going to spend that kind of money. But anyway. Any other questions about our meeting or any other comments about our meeting? Yep.
No, I just have, just to say good morning again, and I have to excuse myself, I'm going to a Thriving Youth meeting.
Nothing else to do, huh?
I don't know if anybody's any questions for me, but I have a lot of people here who were at the meeting, and also my staff's here if they can answer, but if there's anything before I leave.
Now, if you need anything from the committee for your answers to Michelle, just give us a call.
No, don't worry about that.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
Not shy, I guess.
Rusty, we're talking, the next part is you and Nick on this Eversource and SES.
Yep. As you recall, we've had a discussion with Eversource, an initial one, and we've had a conference call involving SLAM and Greg, I don't remember Greg's last name, of SLAM, who handles this type of stuff. We are going to kill two birds with one stone, so we're having 2 meetings back-to-back right up in the Berlin area. We're required to have a kickoff meeting at Eversource, and we're going to do that one first. And it really is a pro forma type of thing. They're going to review kind of what the options are and how to do it and all this other stuff that we mostly already know. But it establishes a start date for us in schematic design so that they give more money for participation in this process.
Yeah, Sean wasn't here when you first explained that. Maybe you just wanted to say it one more time, why the starting early is important.
For 2 reasons. One, if you start when you're starting schematic, they give you $5,000 more rather than if you start when you're doing design development. Secondly, the baseline ASHRAE standard is 13, but they are going to be moving it up shortly, and it'll be that much tougher because your incentives are based on the incremental difference between what you're spending and what you could spend if you went cheap, basically. And so those are the 2 reasons they urged us to get started really quick. So we're doing that. We will then walk up the street to SES. literally, we won't walk, but it's probably a 5-minute drive. We'll have representatives of this committee, SLAM, and CES, who's the MEP consultant for SLAM, will be there. And also the modeler will probably be there too.
Amy got 2 bids.
If they got 2 bids, they haven't, Amy hasn't told me which one they've taken yet.
Oh, no, the one was ridiculously higher than the other, twice as high.
Good, so we basically know who it is.
Yes. We
Yeah,
know.
I just need the name.
She just showed it to us yesterday at the end of the meeting.
Yeah. So actually, the modeler will be at the Eversource meeting.
Right.
Because they're paying for it, which is a good type of thing. So we'll just start the commissioning process, and again, it's handing out the questionnaires and doing all that other stuff. So we'll have a lot to talk about when we get back at the next meeting.
And I gave the schedule of those meetings to David Cravenzola as well.
Okay.
So he's now aware of them. You may want to include him on the
Yeah.
invite, but I gave him he took a copy of the email that you sent me about the meeting times.
Yes. Did he want to participate, or?
I think he wanted to, I don't know, you have to ask him.
I'll ask him.
He seemed to indicate to me that he was.
Okay, that's
interested.
good, because they're not that far from there.
Right. So Rusty, to the degree that anybody from the committee wants to join either one of those meetings or is able to.
Yep, just let me know.
Starts at 12:45 in Berlin, Connecticut, next Thursday.
Next Thursday, 12:45 at Eversource, and that meeting will probably go about an hour. And then we'll go down the street to SES, and that will probably be another hour, thereabouts. And it's 10 minutes off of 91, or you can take the Merritt up if you want to slog along the back roads when Route 15 turns into a...
It's lovely.
Yeah.
I've been up there yesterday. Are there any questions about that? Okay, with regard to other matters, I was going to say that we will be having 2 other meetings. They're not scheduled yet. One will be to discuss the payment method and all of the accounting requirements to have invoices paid, whether it come from the construction project or be town invoices, that is from consultants, et cetera. That, we want to make sure we have that all buttoned up, how we're doing it. I asked yesterday from Michelle Dixon to look at all the codes that we had from the Tokenique School project and affirm that those were the same codes that the state's using now, and she had 2 changes she gave me. I'll give those to Jennifer, and I'll get them over to Mike as well. But then we'll go through the process of how we're going to be doing the invoice payments, so we keep track of all of this, and we're not going to be offline. We also, John, just for your information, I know that David Palin had asked us to come together and figure out what we're going to spend the next, 10 months or so.
Right.
And we'll do that, including encumbrances.
Yeah, we just got some refunding opportunities, so we're gonna try to aggregate all of that bonding.
He thought he was looking for a December, January timeframe, but we'll get stuff ready earlier.
That'd be great.
You know.
Yep.
And we are also keeping track of all the spending we're doing by date, by check, and we have it now chronologically.
Okay.
So we can look at that anytime. And then we have another meeting that we're going to schedule pretty soon on security. And in this meeting, it's going to be about school security systems. I'm hoping, Sean, that you'll be available for that one. I'll try and figure out when it's going to be. What?
I'm gonna try and make that one.
But we also, we're going to have, I've invited Kevin Cunningham, who's the newest police commissioner, who has extensive background in crisis management and security, having done the Olympics. He's worked with the CIA, NASA, and the Secret Service, so he knows the stuff. And we'll probably have someone from the police department. We'll obviously have people from the district, Luke, but that'll probably be in early October. We'll figure out when it is, if we're just trying to get, we want to do it, we want to kick it off as a discussion, no permanent decisions, but just get it started.
Do you want to include SLAM on that?
Oh, yeah,
as well?
they want to be in that one. They definitely want to be in that one. And they have their security experts, which are D'Agostino and company. Anything else anybody else has?
Update on the contracts? Got nothing to report, other than it's sitting at the attorney's office. Nick and I did spend a delightful 3 3/4 hours doing the first review with Slam. That was fun, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
There are a few little issues, but nothing that's going to stop anything. And the important point is we're waiting for both APO&G and SLAM to come back to us. So it's been in their hands for a number of weeks, and we're not delaying anything. Even though our attorney was on a 3-week trip, it didn't matter.
And we have another invoice today. We'll go over that.
Yep.
For approval.
Just as an FYI, we had a request, and Kip and I attended the RTM education meeting on Monday night and kind of gave them an update and kind of used the timeline that I think Mike Lynch and folks have been putting together. So minimal questions, positive, keeping those folks informed. So I thought it went well, but
I did give them, I have to go back to Clara and clear up something that I said that was a mistake. Someone's asked me about I talked about the energy savings we're looking at. And the person said, well, are those annual savings of 300,000? And I said, yes, and of course, that's not the case. I mean, what am I thinking? So I'll clarify that point.
The answer to that is that's what the modeler is for. So at the end of the day, when we figure out all the measures that are going to be put into the building, it will tell us our annual savings.
But the 300 rough savings comes from what?
The 300,000 is what they're going to help us pay for the energy efficiency stuff. That'll be a lump sum check.
Oh, for the capital costs?
Capital costs.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's much better. I should have.
That's actually another general point. I was going to raise this earlier, which is, I think it'll be valuable on some of these decisions to have sort of a base case cost versus the cost of what we're going to do, right? So if you talk about, for example, the earlier discussion about sustainable engineering solutions, if these guys are going to come in and propose elements to the design to ensure that we have that sustainability, it would be kind of interesting to know what the baseline was, right? So if you don't do this, this is actually what you have in terms of, I guess, not sustainability, to use a phrase, or a baseline cost, so that when we go through some of these things, they're going to range from clearly we should do this so the incremental cost is minimal or zero, to, well, yes, that's a great sustainable thing to have, but the cost is astronomical, and so we've ruled that out. And I think that applies to kind of what we're talking about here, is just to give them a sense of, look, the cost savings are going to be this for the design decision we're making, versus if we didn't do that, it would look like this, just so that every time we go through something that maybe is non-obvious in terms of why you would do that, that there's a baseline cost to compare and show people that we're actually making judicious decisions about where to go with something and where not to go.
That's what the modeler is going to help us with. So the way Eversource works is it's actually a discussion on what that baseline is. You know, I would like to have, for lighting, for example, a baseline of T12s. Well, they don't even make them, they're so inefficient, but they're not going to let us do that. So the baseline will probably be T5 fluorescence. And then here are 3 options that you can look at for light. I'm just talking about lighting as an example, that you can do. Here's the absolute cost, and here's the savings per annum, and here is your payback period. So that's what you're going to get, and we'll have an option to choose this, that, and the other.
Just like we did with LED streetlights, right?
Exactly the
But
same.
to your point, the baseline should be feasible, right?
Yes,
Like a choice
feasible.
that you could-
We're going to try to push that baseline down.
There's 2 baselines. One is the baseline for what we get reimbursed from. And the other baseline is what we practically have to look at. What's the real baseline that we're thinking about in terms of if we did it today, how would we do it?
Question about the modeling. Is it possible that the kitchen design and the kitchen equipment might be part of what
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we'll look at that as well. So that'll be.
Anything that's running electricity or gas is going to be in this.
Okay.
Speaking of that, we, on this design, or somewhere on this design, they show a mechanical room. And the question and they said that by having the building, the courtyard totally enclosed, you have shorter runs rather than having 2 remote wings where you're putting things out. So the question is whether these are the right places or the best places for mechanical rooms, which is something I'm sure that your group might look at.
Yeah.
You know, the best location both for distribution and for service, to the degree that you need it.
It's also cost when you're running those big cables in.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it, they're probably $400 to $500 a foot right now.
What?
Yeah. So we'll take a look at that.
Made feeders and stuff.
Yeah, the wires.
It's not just an extension cord you bought down.
No, I
Rings
John's predecessor years ago was of that mind. He was going to buy a new boiler for the hot water heater for the school. He was going to go to Home Depot and install it himself. Remember that story?
So Rusty, so it's an energy modeling. Is there any water modeling related to this as well, as far as
It
water?
will be in SE, the Sustainability Engineers Solutions. It's going to be, it's the building. It'll be in that area. It won't be in the Eversource
It's
area.
Eversource, obviously.
Eversource
It's all
is
about the
energy.
energy.
Yeah.
But I'm
I mean, there's
just wondering
a
who's
lot of stuff that will be in the high-performance building, from types of glass to
Yeah.
insulation to materials to water usage, everything.
So Rusty, I'm curious about the kitchen in particular. If they're looking at energy and water, what about things like with windows? It makes sense, right? You're comparing this window to this window. But when it comes to the kitchen, comparing dishwashing to single use, single use doesn't require electricity and water, but there is a trash output, storage, a cost, all of those things. Do you know if they compare the two when it's
Yes.
kind of apples to oranges?
So they're gonna go from each, once it's designed, and we need, two 6-burner stoves and a fat fryer. We probably won't want fat
Vegetable crisper.
Isn't it chicken nuggets and french fries? What else do you need to know?
Chick-fil-A,
Everything
Chick-fil-A.
gets- Everything gets baked, I
Don't need
think.
Yes,
convection
that's all part
Heat
of
lamps.
SES's drill is to, and they take into account the non-electric costs, for example, because some things are a lot more difficult and costly to operate, to answer your question.
One other point related to that is this notion of design for serviceability. There's a lot to be done to reduce maintenance costs and headaches if all the equipment and all of the replaceables and all of those things are organized in such a way that it's a piece of cake to change or replace. I take it that that's all front and center in terms of design, but worth noting.
I'm particularly sensitive to that because one of the 2 big boilers in our rinks, they installed backwards.
I hate when that happens.
And it wasn't worth doing again, so to service it, you gotta climb over stuff and.
But to your point,
Clearly you were off that day.
I
Rusty.
Sounds like poor
off. Not physically there, but just a little off.
that was something that the food service consultant mentioned as well, even just from our staffing serviceability with the ovens, having doors on both sides so that they can load things that need to be baked in the back and that they can pull out things that are coming out from the front so that it's, that they're not walking around, so that it reduces burns, it's more efficient. So they were thinking about some of that stuff internally as well, which I think is just smart design.
So living in a not-new house, I can tell you serviceability is a regular theme among family discussions. So,
It's like I saw an athletic facility we did work on, and they put the black iron. The black iron is where the exhaust that's required to be made out of black iron, unserviceable. Unserviceable. So the grease was just building up, and we took a quick look in there, and it was, if the fire marshal had come, they would have shut it down.
Well, I think that Mike Lynch's experience with Tokenique School, when he first saw it, is enough to make sure that we have his attention on all items of serviceability.
got your back, Mike, don't worry.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Just one final thing, just a reminder that the Oxbridge PTO has invited the committee to come and speak at 7 p.m. on October 2nd, which is the evening before our next meeting on October 3rd, right? I'll send out a more formal invitation so you guys can all add it to your calendars. But anyone that's able to attend, we'd love to have you.
Let us know what we should prepare, or, you know, what themes they'd like to hear.
I'm sure
Okay.
you're going to want to know when.
Of course.
Where, what?
And not how much.
That's a different audience.
No kidding.
How much?
What? Anything else? Any
Speaking
questions?
of, speaking of how much, do we have a framework established to track budget versus actuals set up?
We're going to do, what I'm looking to is David Cravenzola's both the time schedule, and he'll have in there, plug in their monetary amounts. But we have right now a track of how much we've spent, and we can put it against the amounts, but we will put together that. That'll be coming out of our discussion, our finance discussion meeting, and clearly we need that.
Yeah, I just feel like it'll be a good rhythm for us in these meetings, maybe once a month, every other meeting or something, to just do a schedule and budget check-in. Yeah.
We have a
You must have been
schedule-
talking to John.
At the end of November, I believe, if I remember the meeting dates, November 21st, SLAM and APO and GA are going to present the schematic design, and it's going to include a complete budget at that point.
They have to put down budgets every time we finish a segment. They have to
Right.
revise all their cost estimates. So we'll have a revised one then.
And it seems that Dave, based on the conversation in the meetings yesterday, he's working on that now. I mean, he's continuing to tweak what he has based on, and I think his involvement in all these meetings has been really valuable, not only for what he's brought to the meeting, but also for what he's learning and taking back. And he has a good understanding of where the project is right now. He's continuing to shape the budget based on his understanding.
And
One thing I'd recommend is that when we did this for the Public Works Garage Building Committee, a simpler project than this, but I basically just created a spreadsheet where we had all of those budget items there, and as the money got spent,
Right.
we kept track of it so that we were always fresh with an answer to, oh, are we tracking versus budget? What
Right.
does this look like? Where are some areas where we've had to add because it was out of scope or make a change? We had a clear and complete answer to that at all times. The other thing would be to have somebody on the committee, maybe not necessarily doing that, given the size of this project, but that's the person who's the go-to person for staying on top of the budget and quickly has an answer to that type of question. I think that'll be important for RTM, right, or Board of Finance, any kind of update like that, to have that information fresh. So as we sort through the process that we're going to go through for invoicing and billing,
We'll
and we
talk
get
about
familiar
that.
with what we have, we ought to think about that and maybe actually have somebody from the committee to be designated as the point person for staying on top of that.
We
That's pretty
actually,
important.
I think we used your spreadsheet, or the town used a version of it for the high school cafeteria.
Yeah, I'm sure it
expansion.
exists, templates.
And we had Jim Palin on the committee, so every meeting, I mean, we did a line item on that.
Yeah, that'll be a good number, a good thing to stay on top of.
Yeah.
So.
I'll have asked Dave, because I've got to talk to him anyhow, to give us a couple of examples. This is standard operating procedure with them. So every month we'll get that report, and it'll show the budget and then the spending and what they're requesting. So everybody here will have that.
We want to make sure that it includes all the soft costs.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
The
That aren't
stuff
just-
outside of,
Yes.
like, we've already spent money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that it did was it highlighted to the Public Works team areas where they could see what was coming up and what we were spending, that they could go in and take care of something themselves. And that actually pulled the cost out of the budget. Again, for this project, I see a lot less of that given the complexity. But it just gives you a chance to stay on top of it, and
Yeah.
allows the town staff that are working on this to stay on top of it as well, so.
And we could always measure, we always measured what's left in our contingency. We always were sort of aware of what that was. It was
Yeah.
helpful.
Mm.
Okay, cool. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks. Thank you. So it's going to be, next week is the meeting with